In this session, I'm going to tell you how to make a very simple inventory and select different weapons that has different damages, something like that, and close it. The inventory system that I'm going to tell you in this session is a very basic and simple one. Because if I want to teach the real inventory system that you can collect different things, equip them, or consume them, then that would need that I make, for example, 10 sessions for that inventory system, which is not beginner friendly. And in the future, I will teach that in a very complete series. But right now, we just want the player to be able to select different things from the already populated inventory. Here, I've add this, and these are the bottoms. Export this and merge this and this, and also this and this. So you have one thing. This is one of the ways. And also, there is a bag. And also, you need to design your weapon just as size of the sword that the player has in his hand. So there's sprite. When I want to apply the sprite on that and change that sprite, it wouldn't change in size dramatically. And also export this one and also the mace individually. Okay, I made a folder in art inventory, and then I fix the PPU and this. Okay, now let's make the UI. So go to canvas, um, UI panel weapons, or the inventory. I remember, I just gave you example for this weapon. You can also change the helmet. I will tell you um, the way that you can change the sword. You can also change, for example, the armor, the helmet. They're the same, but for the simplicity of this tutorial, I just changed the um, sword. And remember, your panel should not collide with other things. Otherwise, clicking on them would be very hard. And yes. And now I make a image called BG. And let's give the bottoms UI legacy bottom BTN as one, or W1, it means weapon one. Remove the text. Anchor point to the up. And also now duplicate that too. Okay, to deduct here. Control D. Weapon 3. You can add as many weapons that you want. These are actually the weapons that already the player has when the game begins. Um, you can make them deactivated, so when the player finds for example, this one, the second weapon, then if the button would be activated. You can do that. But collecting them and adding them, That would be a different thing, and it needs a dynamic inventory, which is not covered in this course. And dock that to this part. And the second one has this picture, something like this. Then remove the whites. And as it's obscure the vision, so I decrease the opacity. Okay, something like that. Later I just add the this bag. Um, Only these are shown when I click on that. But let's write the code for now. And also we have this. Remember that, okay, this was the sword. The pivot point was this, but well, yes, in this place. So for other weapons, I have to make the exact pivot point. And you can test it by going there and here. I think that's good. And now for this one. Okay, that's fine. And if you play the game, so this would work. And imagine that I want to give this one is also is in good placement, but I want to do that with code. So let's return to there, player, and make this sword this. And also one that they have different damages. So let me add a text. Center. Dock this to there. And for example, save 12 and make it white. Okay, now just say nothing. TXT damage. Because I want that each of them has different damage. And to manually give them in the code, and Control B. Alright. So now let's go and write the code. It was in the script player, and I say swap weapon. Here I want to get this is sprites. For example, here, this, and this. So I say serialized field private. As this is a sprite, so I say sprite. This is the sword sprite. and the axe. I think the second one was mace. The mace and the axe. And now we want to set their damage amount. Private int sword damage. For example, this is by default 10. Mace damage 20. And for axe, it will be this. I also need to get the. I want to change this, yes? This one. So I have to have access to that. So I say private sprite renderer. Um, player weapon. I will drag and drop the game object of that, and it automatically gets is a sprite renderer. Here we want to get the name of the weapon, string weapon name. At first, this is nothing, or it is null, and I give the current damage, which is by default this is 10. So each time if I equip that, then the current damage would be this. If I equip the sword, the name would be, for example, sword, and the damage would be, for example, 10. And this is actually 10, but this 10, this is different. So now let's go and write the function for equip the weapon. So private void equip weapon, and here I say okay, a string name sprite the weapon is sprite s and int damage. I say okay, you have this. I'm sorry, it was yes. So weapon name equals to name. So I give whatever the name is and I put it there. And I have this sprite. Actually, say sprite. Okay, and this data sprite is equal to weapon sprite. And current damage is damage. Now in the game, I want that on the click bottom of that, I give it the ability that it, for example, select sword. Or for this, it selects mace. So I make for each of them a function. I try to break down the code and tell you very, very simple. Yes, you can use, for example, some concise and shorter codes, but for beginners, I just want you to really understand which thing does which thing. That's why I separate them. And I say public void equip sword and I call this function. This is something that you have to give to the sword button. Okay, you want me a string, and the name is something that I want it to be a sword And the sprite, it would be this, and the damage would be sword damage. And I also write a function for void equip. This time equip um, axe. You can make one function and um, just change the parameters for that. But as I told you, this is simple to understand. We have the same shit, and I call it axe, axe sprites, and axe damage. And here we have equip mace, equip, yes, weapon, I call it mace. Why I give these names? Because I want to save them as player prefab, player pref. And that would be mace sprite and mace damage. Mace damage. And I go to my UI and assign all of them. For that, these damages do nothing. So I have to go to player attack, and here I have it was what, sword damage? Yes. And here I want that, okay, say public void change damage, and it needs int damage. And here the sort damage would be equal to damage. And I can place it here as well. And then I go to my swap weapon and call that uh, code. Say private player attack, player attack. That's a gift component because I'm going to give that code. No, I'm not giving that code to player. So let me say find object of type, yes, player. And here, as you equip the weapon, you want to change that. For example, player attack, that's change damage, which was the function that was here. And I say the current damage after it's been updated. What? I had two methods by the same name. So I go and change damage, weapon. Okay, now let's go to this swap weapon. I just give the code. Sword sprites. Um, Let me lock that so I don't accidentally click on something else. Let it go. That goes first to Mace sprite, the Axis sprite. For that, I need to go to character player and drag and drop this. And yes, that is this. And now I select all of them, say plus for the unclick, and I give this that has the code. And for the swap weapon, I have to individually do that. So for the sword, equip sword. For mace, equip mace. For axe, equip equip axe. And I think wait, let's try that. Yes, just changes the sprite. And I want to see if that really does the sword damage. So when I do the melee attack, I think it was here. Timer. That's so debug that log. Let's show the sword damage. So I selected this is 10. I selected it would be 20, and this 30. What is that? By 50. I think by default it was 50. So now if I go and play the game again, the last time I think that I selected something else, but whatever you select, it returns to sword. So I have to save which weapon was equipped and how much was the damage, and I load that. So I go to here and say private void save weapon, and here I say okay player pref dot set string. Okay, for the weapon name, save what? Save the weapon name. That each time it changes here. And it could be once it becomes sword, once it becomes axe, and then so on. And also, I want to save player pref that sets int weapon damage, which is the current damage. And for even more emphasize, you can say player pref that save. Now, every time that's it's this function is done, I just save that. Again, how to load that? Say private void load weapon, and I say the weapon name is equal to gets a string, and by default it would be sword. And also the current damage is gets int weapon damage. By default, the current damage is 10, so there's something here. Or you can give another number. Now I say if I want to load the sprites. If weapon name equals to sword, that's inside a string. I mean double quotation that it is a string. And then I say, okay, the player weapon that the sprite is equal to um, sword sprite. Or you can use switch, but I use this. Else if weapon name equals to mace, it would be mace sprite. Else if this is the you're sure that this is your third option and there's no other option, then delete the if, just else. But if you want to add more things, you can use this, so you can use other else ifs. This is a axe, so that would be axe sprite. So you load the web. We don't need this, and also do that because you get the current damage and also change the code. And the load weapon should be done at the start. So let's test it. I have this, the damage. The first one, why the first one the damage is? Maybe it's because when I click on the element, I have to deactivate the thing when I click on elements, so it wouldn't give weird things. So when I do the left click on the UI, it checks. If it is on the UI, then don't do the sword attack, because my sword attack is connected to the left bottom of the mouth, or left click. But if I click on that, I don't want that the player uh, shows the attack. So for that, let's go to player attack. I should look for somewhere that I do the melee attack. I was here. I check this and also say event system that current that's I think this is pointer, something like this, pointer over game object, then return. Let's see how it works. So I click on this. You see that it's not attacking. Yes, if I go here and click, yes. What if I go to UI, like this, or this? It doesn't do anything because we are on the UI element. So yeah. Okay, I have, but wait, for the first time, I think it attacked. That was weird. Uh, no, I don't know. So, I don't know, maybe it was shocked at first, but now it works correct. So, this has 10 damage. This is 20 and this is 30. And remember, we have the axe and this is the amount of damage. Now let's exit the game and also play the game again and see if the loading works. So the sprite is working well and also the damage is 30. So this works. Now if you don't want that it stays there like this, let's go and go to art, inventory, and add this as the image. As I want to deactivate that and the loading is there, so I'm going to uh, get that code. Yes, I think I can copy that. Copy components and how to paste that. Paste component as new. I delete it and fix things here. Okay, I fixed that and I told you this because I want to deactivate it. So when it is deactivated, the loading is not working. So I gave the code so it's always on and it's not deactivated. Oh. So now I have this and then here, let me add I can add a button. UI, legacy, button. I remove the text. Let me remove this now. So this is the bottom, the width, and the height. Give this to this picture. It's very small. The color, this is for girls. Yeah, something like that. So that would be extinguishable from the background. And yes, we have this. But now it is a skeleton here. We don't see much. But you get the point. Okay, so that is our inventory. Let's say inventory icon. And I add the code here. Public void open inventory serialized fill private game object inventory bg. This one that has everything on it. Dot set active would be true and it will be opened. And how to close that? We can as it is not active during a game, so I can make it full opacity. You have different ways to close that or deactivate that. You can press a button here to return, or whenever that you select the weapon, it will close. And there are also other ways. For example, do you remember that you say, okay, this event system, if it is true, return. So if it is not true, it means that I have clicked on this and this, so this would be deactivated. I can use that. And you can check this in every frame, which is not sufficient performance. Usually you need to use delegates, which is not beginner friendly, and I don't cover in this course. So we just use a simple button to close that. Okay, let's go and PG button. Stick this to this. And UI. Yeah, we had this. Remove the text. Oh. Okay, we have this. And that is btn exit. If I click on that, then here, close, inventory, and it will be false again. Ah, there was the code here. So the panel, yes, inventory PG is completely this one. And sorry. It was close inventory. At first, it should be deactivated, okay? And this has a very bad color, ew. You could in Photoshop give it a stroke, so it's not like that. Let me fix that very quickly. Okay, I changed that and it has a stroke. I didn't give any code. It was open inventory, not close. Yes, it was open inventory. I open that, I can select them and then close them, and then I do that, then yes. And now I have an axe. I want to show you, okay, these are deactivated. Let's see if it works. Yes, it is still axe. And this is 30, so our inventory works well. And you can add different items. For example, helmet, another row. Or you can at first make it deactivated, and then when a player go on adventure and find, for example, the maze in the real world, I mean in this game world, and then this button is activated. That is also another simple one. So that is kind of unlocked. And you do that simply by player pref. So what's for now, that's fine. And I just wanted to show you how the code works. And in future courses, we really work on the real inventory, which you can populate items in there and not like that. And we also use a scriptable object, and the code would be very different. But it's important that you understand these basics.